Welcome back, class. Today we are going to work on Chapter 4, Section 1, which is all about those. Okay. So a ratio is going to be our first vocabulary word. Is going to be a comparison of two quantities So I believe in the past it was a comparison of two integers. Now we're going to have two quantities by division. Okay. So comparison of two quantities by division. So that means we're going to have a fraction, okay, for some of them, but we have other ways that we can write them. So in arithmetic, okay, arithmetic just means numbers. And in algebra, which means variables. Okay. So we have three different ways. We have with the word two, so such as 5 to 7. Okay, that's one way. We have a second way, which is 5:7. Okay, and then a third way, which is 5 divided by 7 in a fraction. Okay, so we have three different ways that we can write ratios. Okay. In algebra, we're going to have the first way, it's the same thing, but we're going to use variables. So A to B. Okay. The second way, A:B. And the third way, A divided by B, where B does not equal 0. Okay, because we can't divide by 0. Make sure you get that. So we're going to go on to our first example. Okay. So our first example is going to talk about piano, a piano with so many keys. Okay. So it's going to have, in our example, 5 black keys. Okay. It's going to have 7 white keys for a total of 12 keys. Okay. So we are going to write, the first example says use the pattern shown right here. Write the ratio of black keys to all keys in 3 ways. So we want black to all keys. Okay. So we know that we have 5 black keys. So we're going to write 5 here. Okay. In our first way, we're going to use the word 2. And how many keys do we have total? 12. Okay. So we're going to have 12 keys. So our first ratio is 5 to 12. Next, we're going to do just a different way. Okay. Way number 2, 5:12. And then the final way will be 5 divided by 12. Okay. So we wrote a ratio of black keys to all keys in 3 different ways. Okay. At this time, I want you to pause the video and work on quick check number 1 on page 128. Quick check number 1 says write each ratio in 3 ways. Use the pattern of keys shown above. So we're going to use the same pattern as up here. So the first one is white keys to all keys. Okay. So we know that we have 7 white keys. So 7, the first way is 2, 7 to 12. Then 7 colon 12 and 7 divided by 12. Okay. In B, we're going to have white keys to black keys. Okay. Or we're going to have 7 white keys to our 5 black keys. Okay. And 7 colon 5 and 7 divided by 5. Okay. Yes. Okay. So those are the answers for quick check A, quick check number 1, A and B. Okay. So we're going to move on. So we just wrote ratios. Okay. We were writing ratios. Now we are on writing equivalent ratios. Okay. So our next vocabulary terms is equivalent, ratios. Okay. So we can kind of figure out what this means. We know what ratios are. Okay. Comparison of two quantities by division. And we know that equivalent means equal. Okay. So this is going to mean two ratios that name the same number What time are they going to
I don't know. If we leave in the morning, early.
6-hour drivers.
So he said he'd let us know if we weren't going to be here. But he says that not really.
Okay.
You know, we're coming, because we're going to stay.
Yeah, that's fine. Okay. All right. Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. All right, I'm back. Okay. So equivalent ratios are two ratios that name the same number. Okay, and we've worked with this, so this might not be new to you, but if we're gonna have an example now. Example 2, okay? And in a previous course, you learned to write equivalent fractions. Now you can find equivalent ratios by writing a ratio as a fraction and finding an equivalent fraction, okay? So example 2 says find a ratio equivalent to 4/5. Okay, finding a ratio equivalent to 4/5. So what we're going to do is probably the easiest way to do it. We write 4/5 down here, okay? And what we're just going to multiply by 2/2, okay? So multiply both sides by 2. So when we multiply by 2/2, we're technically multiplying by 1, okay? And 1 doesn't change the number. That's why equivalent fractions work. Because 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 4/5 times 1 is 4/5, except we can change the numbers here. So 4 times 2 is 8, and 5 times 2 is 10. Okay, so 8/10 is equivalent to 4/5. Okay, so that's example 2. Now example 3 is just a little different. Okay, it wants us to find a equivalent ratio and then write it in simplest form. Okay, so example 3, find equivalent ratio in simplest form. Okay. So the ratio that they give us is 2 yards to 20 feet. Okay. So you always have to be careful when they give you labels, okay? Because they may mean something different. So we rewrite this into a fraction. Step 1 is rewrite it into a fraction, okay? So 2 yards over 20 feet. Okay. Now we need to compare the same label, okay? So we have yards and feet. So what we're going to do is we're going to change yards into feet, okay? So we know there are 3 feet in every yard, so we are going to multiply 2 times 3 to get 6 feet over 20 feet. Okay, we change yards to feet here. Okay, so now we have a ratio as a fraction. Now we just must put it in simplest form. Okay, so what is our greatest common factor here? Okay, so our greatest common factor is going to be 2. So we're going to take a 2 out of both of these to get 3 divided by 10. Okay, so our answer will be 3/10. Okay, so we wrote as a fraction. Okay, step 1, fraction. Okay, step 2, we multiplied. Okay, step 3, found the greatest common factor. And step 4, we simplified. Okay, so right now I want you to go ahead and do quick check 2 and quick check 3. Quick check 2 says find a ratio equivalent to 7/9. Okay, so equivalent to 7/9. So the easiest way to do this is to just multiply by 2. Okay, and then we can multiply by 3, we can multiply 1, but the easiest way is going to be to multiply by 2. So I can multiply both the top and the bottom by 2 to get 14/18. And then I can even multiply these by 2, which is technically multiplying this by 4 to get 28 over 36. Okay, so these are all equivalent ratios. Okay. Equivalent ratios. Okay. Quick check number 3. Says, write the ratio 3 gallons to 10 quarts as a fraction in simplest form. Okay, so we have 3 gallons to 10 quarts. Okay. So some of us may not know how many quarts are in a gallon. Okay, that's all right. If we go, I believe, let's see. So if you don't know how many quarts in a gallon, feel free to go ahead and search that on the internet. Okay. I know there are 4 quarts in a gallon. Okay. So 4 quarts to 1 gallon. Okay. So first we have to rewrite this as a fraction. Okay. So 3 gallons over 10 quarts. Okay. Now we have to convert this to all quarts. So I'm going to take 3 times the 4, okay, to get 12 quarts divided by 10 quarts. Okay. So now we have a ratio of all quarts, which means we can simplify. So our greatest common factor between 12 and 10 is 2. Okay, so we're going to divide the numerator and the denominator by 2. 12 divided by 2 is 6. And 10 divided by 2 is 5. Okay. So our answer in simplest form is 6/5. So first we wrote ratios. Second, we wrote equivalent ratios. And now we are going to compare ratios. Okay. We're going to compare ratios using decimals to expression compare the ratios. Okay. So if we go and do example 4, okay, it says an official U.S. flag has a length to width ratio of 19 to 10, length to width. The largest U.S. flag measures 505 feet by 255 feet. Is this an official U.S. flag? So here is what we need to do. Okay. We need to compare this and this. These are 2 ratios, but we need to make them in the same form. Okay. So 19 divided by 10. Okay. And 505 over 255. Okay. Notice my lengths. My lengths are up top and my widths are down below. Okay. So we are going to compare them in this problem using decimals. So to make them into a decimal, we know we just have to divide. Okay, so the bottom number goes on the outside. So 10 divided by 19. 10's going to 1, 0. 110 goes into 19, so 10. Okay, 19 minus 10 is 9. Bring the 0 down. Decimal goes up. 10's going to 90. We know there are 9 10s in 90, which gives us a remainder of 0. So we have, for this one, 1.9. Okay. So we do the same over here. 255 divided by 505. Okay. We know that 0, 255 is going to 5 or 50, and that only 1 goes into 505. So 1 times 255 is 255. If we subtract, we get 0, 5, and so we get 250. Okay. So we're going to have to bring down another 0. Okay. We know that 9 255s go into 2,500. So 9 times 255 is going to end up being 2,295. Okay, if we subtract these, we get 205. Okay, bring another 0 down. Okay. If we figure out how many 255s go into 2,050, we get 8. Okay. And because we get this 8, this stuff doesn't really matter. Okay. So we got 1.9 and 1.98. Okay. These two numbers are not equal. So the big flag is not an official US flag. Okay. Not official. So go ahead and pause the video and work on quick check number 4, A, B, and C. It says tell whether the ratios are equivalent or not equivalent. Okay, so we have 7 to 3 and 128 to 54. Okay, so one way to do this is by division, like we said. So 7 divided by 3, we get 2 3s going to 7. Okay, 6, 1, bring the 0 down, and we get 3, so 9. 1, bring another 0 down, okay, and we're going to repeat. So it's 2.33 over here. Okay, and we get 128 divided by 54. Okay, I know 2 54s go into this. So 108. So it's going to be 20. Bring the 0 down. Okay, so I can have not 4, but I can have 3. So it's going to be 2, carry the 1, 162. Okay, which is going to end up being 38. Bring a 0 down. Okay, and I can have, let's see, I can have 7 here. So 7 times 4 is 28. So 378, okay. So this is going to end up being 2, 3, 7. So these two ratios up here are not equivalent. Okay. So that was quick check for part A. Now we have part B, okay, which is 180 divided by 240 and 25 divided by 34. Okay, so there's a little shortcut you can do this one. Okay, so we know that if you multiply this fraction, if you can get this fraction by multiplying a whole number, they're equivalent. Okay, so if I go 25, that'd be times 1, times 2 would be 50. We have 75 times 3, times 4 is 100, times 5 is 125, times 6 is 150, times 7 is 175, times 8 is 200, okay? Because 180 is right here, I couldn't get to it by multiplying using equivalent fractions. So therefore, these two are not equivalent, okay? So that was just a little shortcut. You didn't have to use the decimals. You could have. You know, the decimals, dividing will always work, but this was just a little shortcut, okay? Okay. So as you see, 180 is between 175 and 200. Okay, in part C, part C is 6.1 to 7 and 30.5 to 35, okay? Again, there's a small shortcut. Because these numbers are small, we know that to get to 35, we multiply by 5, okay? So in order for these to be equivalent, we must be able to take 6.1 times 5 to get to 30.5. Okay, so let's see if that's true. So if we have 6.1 times 5, we get 5, we get 30, okay, and there's one decimal place, so 30.5. So yes, that works. So these are equivalent. Okay. So that is all for this lesson. Please, if you have any questions, ask Mr. Storm. Your homework is going to be page 130, numbers 12 through 18. '23 through 25. And 28. Okay, so go ahead and work on your homework. If you have any questions, feel free to ask Mr. Storm. Thanks.